everybody. Welcome to this episode Study on Spotlight podcast by DADI. I am Regan from DADI Education, and today's special guest is Martin. How are you, Martin?
I'm very well. I'm very pleased to be here.
Thank you so much for your time. Do you mind sharing with everyone your position and what school it is that you're representing?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Martin Schooley. I am the course director, or the program director, I should say, for the communication design courses at Norwich University of the Arts. So those courses are kind of graphic design, user experience, illustration. And at Norwich University of the Arts, we have 6 different program areas. So we have architecture and interior design, computer, games, animation, fashion, textiles, all of the kind of things you'd expect at a traditional art school. And I lead one of those sort of program areas.
Amazing. I mean, one thing I just heard is I think I pronounced the school name wrong this whole time. I was like, Norwich? It was like Norwich. Oh, okay. Yeah, my Australian accent's not helping me.
Yeah, so a lot of people put the W in Norwich, but Norwich University of the Arts.
Norwich. Okay. Where is Norwich, actually?
So it's out on the sort of southeast coast of England. It's about 2 hours on the train from London. It's in Norfolk or East Anglia. Actually, it's very near, it's quite near Holland, the Netherlands. If you like the countryside and you like the coastline, Norwich is an absolutely fantastic place to be. It's a beautiful city.
Wow. So students typically, if they go to this university, do they have to go to Heathrow and then make their way to the university? Or is there another flight there?
Probably definitely flights to Stansted, which is a lot closer than Heathrow. Okay. Actually, there's an international airport at Norwich, which is one of the best airport experiences you'll ever have because it's super quick to get through. So internationally, you could actually fly to Amsterdam, and then there's a really short hop of about 30 minutes over to Norwich International Airport. But Heathrow as well and Stansted are also options.
Wow, but you did mention it's very close to Holland, right?
Yeah, it is.
So is it very common for people living there? Like, I'm just going to hop on going to Holland.
Well, yeah, it is. And someone told me once, and I don't know if this is true, that the nearest motorway to Norwich is actually in the Netherlands. I might be wrong about that, but that's how close we are. So that just sort of gives you an idea of the kind of easterly position of where Norwich is in terms of the UK map.
Wow, but it's only just 2 hours away from London, so it's surprisingly nice. With the weather, would you say it's very different as well, even though it's 2 hours?
It's certainly different to what I'm experiencing here in Hong Kong.
Oh, goodness,
today.
Don't say that.
Again, someone once said that we get slightly more sunshine hours than anywhere else in the UK in Norwich. I'm not sure if that's entirely true, but yeah, it's an amazing place. It's, as I say, 2 hours from London, but you're in this amazing sort of part of the country. Norfolk is full of amazing countryside, and you've got the North Norfolk coast just very nearby. So if you like the beach and all that kind of thing, it's not too bad.
Oh, so there's beaches and it's kind of warm weather, because people associate UK like rainy, cloudy, cold, windy.
I'm not going to deny that it doesn't rain. It certainly rains, but we get a really good mix of weather.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Norwich is a city, right?
Yeah, it's a city. It's a small city. It's a really fantastic mix of some really ancient buildings and modern architecture. Lots of what I would call reclaimed architecture. Mm. So buildings that used to be one thing and have now been converted into something else. An example of that, for example, is that there are loads of Norman churches everywhere you look. There are ancient flint-covered churches, but you're as likely to go into one of them and find it's now a shop or a cinema or a cafe as it might be a church. So Norwich has got that sort of spirit of independence and change. It's a city on a really lovely scale. You can walk from one side of Norwich to the other in about less than an hour. There's a beautiful river that runs right through it, and the campus of Norwich University of the Arts is right in the centre. We're currently about 13 buildings, and 12 of them are all within a few minutes walk of each other. And the 13th building, which is brand new to us, is only about 10-15 minute walk away. So the sort of city centre is our campus, really. And all of our buildings are really interesting. They are only one or two of them are purpose built, but all of the others are that they used to be something else in an earlier part of their life, and they've been reclaimed, as it were, by us and converted architecturally to suit the kind of creative courses that we run.
Oh, okay. So it sounds like it's a beautiful city, of course, like you said.
Yeah, it is. It's got 2 cathedrals. It's got restaurants, independent shops, bars, great nightlife. We're right in what we call the cultural quarter. So we've got theatres, we've got galleries, a very, very close proximity to the art school.
Amazing. I mean, because one thing, especially for Hong Kong students or students from Asia, they usually live in the big cities where it's very busy, there's a lot of things to do. When they go to the UK or just overseas in general, they're scared that if it's not the capital city or cities they've ever heard of, it's going to be a small city. But does that mean there's going to be nothing to do? It's going to be very boring or old buildings?
Yeah, I completely hear that. Actually, it's quite a lot of UK students from different parts of the UK feel the same. They think about London, and London is a huge pull. The beauty of the position of Norwich is that it's got all the kind of convenience of London with none of the cost. So it's very quick to get there, a couple of hours on the train, but the cost of living is far less in a city like Norwich. There's a huge amount of accommodation. Norwich benefits actually from having another much bigger, more generalist university on its doorstep. So there's a university called the University of East Anglia, and that has I don't know, something like 15,000, maybe more students, perhaps as many as 20,000 students. The benefit of that, combined with our own university and several other higher education institutions, is that the whole city is young, it's vibrant, there's a real pulse to it, there's a real energy to it, there's masses and masses of accommodation, there's halls of residence for first years, and lots of private accommodation. But also from a kind of cultural point of view, an entertainment point of view, a nightlife point of view, it's all there because there's a huge student population in the city.
So you would say that the city is mainly built on like a lot of students there, like the population is mainly?
Definitely. It would be really interesting to know what the kind of capital income is that is created by having, firstly University of East Anglia, then Norwich University of the Arts as well. That it's why there are so many kind of restaurants, bars, cafes, cinemas, all that type of thing. So in no way is it a quiet backwater. It's a vibrant, dynamic city. There's also a sort of burgeoning and growing design and arts community and professional community in the city. Lots of businesses, many of which employ our students. Are on our doorstep, and that kind of cultural design and sort of art economy is growing, and it's actually one of our missions to support that and to continue to grow it. Lots of students will graduate and seek employment all over the country and indeed abroad. But some will stay in Norwich. A lot of people who come to us don't then want to leave, which is a lovely thing to say about the place.
Yep. I mean, it sounds like, it's a lot of students there and the city is like mainly focused to build things for students. And so there's a lot of opportunities, no matter if it's career and also, things to do as well. Because you did mention about the cost of living and accommodation just then. Does that mean it's easy to find accommodation? It's not relatively like very expensive compared with other cities?
Definitely. It's certainly easy. We have an amazing accommodation team as part of our student support department who helps students with finding accommodation, private accommodation in the second and third year. Traditionally, what students often do in the UK is they'll apply to be in halls of residence in the first year. So, and if any student applies to us in time for first year, they're guaranteed a place in our halls of residence. And we have about, I think, 6 or 7 different sites, most of them within walking distance of the city centre. That they are all slightly different. They suit different budgets. They suit different kind of accommodation styles. But after that, once students have found their feet for the first year, they'll kind of club together with some of their friends and find accommodation for second and third year. And it's not difficult to do. And we can support any student in doing that.
Wow. I mean, it is good. To be honest, sometimes I tell students, because I study in Australia, when I did a committee in Hong Kong as well, like Hong Kong Student Committee, and when I tell students about accommodation, it's like, it makes sense. Like the first year, of course, because you don't have friends, you don't know what to do. Of course, the easiest way is to settle in properly, get into a student accommodation arranged by the school or recommended by the school. Once you meet more friends, maybe it's cheaper if you group a few friends together and then you rent out. But at the same time, you get that more independence, because some student accommodations, they have a little bit of restrictions because of the safety issue as well. But once you're comfortable into the country, you settle down, then move away a little bit further, or at least have a few friends together and then rent, a house or apartment.
That's it.
It's a completely different experience, which I highly encourage as well. It's part of immersing yourself into it as well.
Definitely. You've explained it better than I did. It's exactly the same as the experience you've just demonstrated. So second and third year students get that increasing independence. It's also part of kind of learning to be yourself, isn't it? And there's a great deal, I think, to be said. I've always said this. Having to do your course studies at the same time as managing your own laundry and your shopping bill is a real way of discovering who you are as a human. So yeah, second and third years will kind of group together and find private accommodation, and there's plenty of it. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, because one thing we don't talk about, even schools as well in general, in terms of educating, is not just the academic side, but like going overseas, your soft skills, learning to be independent, just going overseas. That's also part of the education process. It's also part of living abroad. So
Definitely.
It's things that people see the changes in their children, but they never talk about it. And I feel like no matter if it's the schools or even parents, they don't focus too much on this type of value. Like, why go overseas? Because a lot of them, if they're only focusing about program, they're like, this school offers the same program, this school offers the same program. Why do I have to go overseas, or why do I have to go here in particular? It's the experience going overseas.
Definitely.
So we focus on like the location. What are the opportunities? Maybe you can do networking as well. You group with people that are studying the same program with the same passion, and also maybe like the area as well. So there's a lot of common kind of aspects to it, and lets you grow and become more independent.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You go to university, as you say, to study a specific discipline, but also to become yourself. To develop as a person. Those soft skills are essential in life, aren't they? So we really recognise that, and I think part of the university's ambition is to support students in all of the ways that they need support. So academically, but also in other ways too. We accept that there might be bumps in the road. It can be difficult for all students, including and perhaps especially international students. So we try to help students find their feet, support them physically and mentally, financially, all of those sorts of things. We're there to sort of make life as easy as possible, and to just help them become themselves, and to study the course they want to do, to enjoy it and to flourish on it. And we're not even talking really about courses or careers here, but that's a huge focus of the university. We're here to sort of help people flourish in their careers, and we do that right the way through first year, second year, third year. There's a huge kind of program of activities at course level. And we have a business and employability team that support all of that work as well. It's a great time to be a student, and I think Norwich University of the Arts is really, really set up to help students, and particularly international students, find their feet and find their futures.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you talked about the career side as well, because Norwich University of the Arts, of course, arts. Stereotypically, arts, people think painting, maybe something creative, and then you put it in a museum or you sell it. But like I said beforehand, there's only a lot of parents think that there's not that going to be so many successful artists. Studying arts is just like a hobby. You're not going to be able to build a career on it, or there's no opportunities for you to support in terms of the income side as well. What are your thoughts on that? Or can you maybe educate a little bit? Everyone's like, arts is not just that part.
Okay, so I agree with you. It's not just that part. We have a fine art course. So in the UK, the type of work you're alluding to, we would typically call fine art. So students on that course might be painters, they might be drawing, they might be making sculpture, they might be making 3D interactive spatial work, all those sorts of things. And it's still a popular option. And there are actually employment opportunities out of fine art courses. Of course there are. But in the overall scheme, it's a small part of what we do in a modern creative university. Huge numbers of our students do an applied creative course, by which I mean some sort of design type course. So we have students designing fashion, designing user experience, designing graphics, designing buildings, designing animations, making films, and so on and so forth. So there's a huge amount of other work that creative people do at an art school. The creative economy in the UK is booming. I think it might be the fastest growing sector of the economy. There are new jobs being created in that sector all the time. One of the kind of missions of the current strategy of Norwich University of the Arts is to expand ever more into the kind of territories that people don't think of as being normally associated with the arts. So, for example, we're pushing into creative computing and coding. We're thinking about robotics. If you think about lots of professions, say take, for example, engineering. You know, engineering might be thought of as a sort of scientific, mathematical thing, but it also needs creative input. So I try to sort of talk to students about the idea that you don't just have creative courses and sort of art type courses in one kind of silo and all of the rest of the world in another. What you need is bridges between the two. And even the World Economic Forum identify that, you know, some of the top skills required to face the future are things like teamworking and collaboration, problem solving, idea generation, all these types of things. And these are absolutely embedded in creative courses. So, you know, we're opening up new courses in things like business, marketing, even philosophy. And courses like this traditionally do not run at art schools, so it's going to be really, really fascinating to see how these courses find their feet in the context of Norwich University of the Arts. So, yeah, going back to your point, there are enormous employment opportunities for people that come out of a place like Norwich University of the Arts with a creative degree. And vast numbers of our students are as I say, they're really designers of one sort or another. So they're using creative skills, but they're applying it to very specific requirements, you know, to design. I mean, if you think about the room we're sat in, everything in this room is designed. You know, for a start, it's a piece of architecture, or arguably it's a piece of interior design. You know, we've got products right in front of our faces. You know, we're sitting on chairs that have been designed. There's a logo on the coffee cup. You know, all of these things are designed. So we're surrounded by creative work. I haven't mentioned things like performance. You know, we have an acting course. And you know, if you think about the cultural sector, you think about film, acting, music, all these types of things, they are creative endeavors. So for anyone that's slightly suspicious that they think what happens at a place like Norwich is everybody just paints, that couldn't be further from the truth. And that is not to diminish the work of the students that do that. But there are lots of other activities that we do.
Amazing. I mean, because it sounds that, you know, because when they focus on arts, they say it's just creative. They didn't know that, you know, like you said, the logos, different things actually associates to creative. You need to have some sort of creativity. These programs open up to that opportunity as well, because they're thinking that business is business. Even if it's a logo, it's going to be marketing's job, but you don't need a creative background. Like, we need to emphasize the significance of you need to have a creative mindset to create something that is eye-catching, but at the same time, you need to integrate a business mindset as well to draw that balance, right? Because some people think that artists are just going to do things that they like I'm going to make a product that I like, or make a design that it's satisfying for me. But that's when the university program's value comes in, is they need to educate that, open your creativeness, but in a career setting, you need to know that, you know, in a position, maybe you need to bring in a bit more business mindset, understanding what your client wants, and how to bridge that, and also keep a balance in between it as well.
Definitely. I think the thing that underpins a lot of the way we teach is what we would call critical creativity. And for me, that's about asking questions. It's about thinking about the work that you do, whether you're an architect, an interior designer, an actor, a fashion designer, whatever it is, and asking, you know, what is this work for? Why do we need it? Who's it for? What's it about? And thinking about the kind of context that the work exists in. And we encourage a kind of, I think to be a critical, creative person, you need to be an honest practitioner. And by honest, I mean reflective. You need to look at what you're doing. And what we do is we encourage our students to work with their peer group, with their tutors. There's lots and lots of collaborative projects and opportunities across our courses. And that encourages a dialogue, a constant dialogue, a sort of a personal interrogation, if you like, of what you're doing, why you're doing it, what's it for, what's the point of this creative work that we're making, and that's the best way to learn. I mean, one of the things that we encourage is a kind of reflection on perhaps things that haven't worked well. So that's not necessarily to celebrate failure, because
it's to learn from it.
It's to learn, yeah, exactly. It's about, I mean, failure is good provided you understand what went wrong and how to fix it.
It's to be a reflective mindset, right?
Exactly. And so all of the kind of courses encourage reflective evaluations of the work you've done. The other thing that's really important at Norwich is, and I mentioned earlier, our sort of business and employability elements. So all the way through, we're thinking about careers, but we're not just thinking about careers in terms of the very subject-specific thing. In other words, if you're, I don't know, if you're on a graphics course, can you make a logo and can you use the software? We're also thinking about, and you mentioned this earlier, you mentioned it in relation to sort of living and growing, but we're thinking about the soft skills that employers need. So we have this really amazing sort of business employability focused tool as part of our courses, and it's called Profile. And what it does is it identifies in you the more sort of transferable skills that you require in any walk of life, not just in a creative career, but, you know, if you were working as in a bank, or I don't know, if you were a vicar or something, you know, I'm trying to think suddenly of you know, you need to be able to talk, to present, to assimilate information, to work in teams. All of these types of soft skills are things that we encourage students to self-identify where they're good, where they need areas for development, and ways in which they can bring those skills on. And it's a big sort of driver in what we do. So we are very, very employment focused. We're very, very industry focused. And we do an awful lot of work with our students to try to encourage them not just to have the kind of subject-specific skills, but the more rounded transferable skills that will make them more and more employable. So yeah, it's a big part of what we do.
Definitely. So I mean, like, an easier way to summarize would be like, say, because from a high school student's perspective, or even parents with a high school student child, it's like when they do arts during high school, it's really about exploring the creativity, create artworks, doing designs. But a university's program in creativity is to acknowledge these students' skills, but then guide them in a way that they want to use what they're great at. Their advantage is they're good with arts, they're very creative. But the program in university is how do we shape and guide you guys that you can learn the soft skills, but also use what you're very good at, which is your creativity and probably design skills, and put it into a way to shape it into a pathway to build on a career and make use of it. Because for high school students and maybe their parents, they think that in high school setting, they're just doing things to satisfy themselves. It's a creativity product, right? But university provides that guidance where they utilize what they're good at and then turn it into something very useful for them, no matter if it's a career or more opportunities exposed to make it more relevant to real life setting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the word career is really interesting because, you know, the world has really changed. So I think it's incumbent on us as an institution to help students realize that the one thing that they come to the university to study, that they think they want a career in, may not be the thing that they end up doing. Hence, it's important that they are more rounded than simply coming in as, you know, if they put their hand up and say, you know, I want to be a textile designer and ultimately one day that's all I want to do, that yes, they may do that. And if they do, then that's absolutely fine. We'll support them in that. But they may do something else. I mean, myself, I'm an example of this. You know, I never intended to work in education. You know, I trained as a graphic designer, I worked as a graphic designer, ran a graphic design business, and, you know, but actually I've really found my kind of sort of employment home and in education. So I think that, you know, there are all sorts of career potentials for people, and people will jump from one thing to another and from different types of roles, even in different types of disciplines. So it's our job to sort of help people have a kind of attitude to a a lifelong learning process that will go on way beyond the time they've left us. And that goes back to that reflection thing. If you can learn to be reflective and always reflective and thinking about your strengths, thinking about the things you're interested in, thinking about the types of things you want to do and what those ambitions are, thinking about the things you need to improve on, you will stand a much better chance of moving forward with purpose. So I think it's we want to, coming to a place like Norwich University Arts is just the beginning. Sometimes I sort of talk to first years and I say, day one of your course here is day one of your career. Don't think of that as a thing that starts 3 years from now. It starts today. But also the learning doesn't stop in 3 years' time. It goes on forever. Or at least it should go on forever. And I think for those that get that idea early, there's a really fulfilling life ahead.
Because of your experience, of course, it's not statistics, but do you reckon, is there any particular careers or industry that is arts or creative arts related that you feel like it's now emerging and there's a lot more opportunities and highly demanded that you would recommend for students that might want to study something creative, but not necessarily saying there's a particular skill that they're good at, but they want to explore, that they should, think about it a bit more as well?
That's a really tricky question.
Because with creative arts, it's so broad in a range. Like, say, there's fine arts, but there might be digital marketing, and then on the creative side, maybe content creation. Because one thing that I think of is nowadays, like what we're doing right now, it's for digital marketing, it's for digital content, right? So it's more, people might think that, these type of things, I don't need a degree for it, right? I can do it myself. But I feel like there is some value in actually pursuing it professionally through a university's program as well. But there is so many different type of careers in the creative side.
Yeah, definitely. I'll try and sort of give you some thoughts on that. One of the things we recognized a few years ago, and we put this in our prospectus and on our website, is that every course that we offer can lead to a lot of other kind of career opportunities. So if you go to a page in the prospectus, let's say graphic design, I'll use that example because that's one of the courses that I work on. You might emerge as a graphic designer and go and get a job in an agency as a graphic designer. But, of course, you might work in marketing, you might work in advertising, you might be a specialist within graphic design, you might be a typographer, you might be an art director, you might be a photographer, you might be a copywriter, you might do social media advertising. All of these sort of opportunities that spring out of that single course. And all of the courses at Norwich have the same kind of long list of other things that might emerge. So it's one of the things that the courses do. When I said earlier that we're very industry focused, there's a number of ways in which we really engage employers throughout all of our courses. And one of them, a really obvious way of doing it, is that we bring in a lot of industry guests to meet the students on no matter what course they're on, to talk to them about careers, to show students what the landscape of employment feels like. So, for example, within the graphics area, we don't just bring graphic designers in. We'll bring in strategists. We'll bring in art directors. We'll bring in copywriters. So the purpose of that is to show students, and all the courses do exactly what I'm describing here. The purpose of that is to sort of expose students to the wider areas of employment that lay in front of them, because we're here to help open students' minds and open their eyes. So. You're quite right. Pre-coming to us, the creative work students do is very much about experimenting, playing with materials, making kind of visual work, making creative work. When they get to a place like Norwich University of the Arts, we start to focus a little more. We start to think about, why are we doing this? How can we apply this to a creative brief? How can we address the needs of an audience and a client? All those sorts of questions that perhaps prior to coming were not that important. But they have to become increasingly important as they go through our courses. I was talking yesterday to a Hong Kong student who's thinking about maybe applying for architecture. And one of the really great things this person said was that they were aware already that architectural practice shouldn't just be about making buildings that look great, but it should be about making buildings that enhance the experience of being inside that building. In other words, thinking about the needs of the users of that building, how you navigate around that space, how you enhance the atmosphere of the rooms and the kind of communal spaces as you pass through the building. So, creative work it's not just about making the world more sort of beautiful, but it's about making the world better. One of the big threads of a lot of our courses is sustainability.
Yep.
So we'll think about the creative practice that we do, whether we're fashion designers or architects or actors or whatever it is, and how that can, how we can think about that in terms of now and the future, and how we can think about, working in ways that not just are more sustainable, but also how we can apply creative skills to issues around sustainability. So we think about these global challenges all the time. And actually, I find that we don't need to push our students to do this. They want to do it. They're actually they're really, really interested in these issues. They're interested in politics, they're interested in culture, and they're interested in the ideas that are shaping the world they're living and growing up in.
Yeah.
So without any kind of sort of coaxing and encouraging, they take these types of projects on. And they're producing work that's increasingly informed about the kind of state of affairs that we're living through, and they're producing work that is trying to address the needs of now and future generations.
Yep. I mean, this just brought up one thing that I remembered. I don't know how complicated this will be, but what are your thoughts on, because you mentioned graphic design and then doing, a lot of research and the soft skills as well. I value that as something that, as a person, you need to learn as well. But on the technical side, it's recently just popped up in my mind again, AI. What do you think of AI? And in terms of the graphic design or just creative industry-wise, do you think AI will be a challenge where people might feel discouraged that, maybe there are things that will be replaced by an AI that I shouldn't pursue in terms of career or even just study in general?
Yeah, this is such a good question, and I actually lead our AI kind of working group. So we're exploring this all the time, and with a great deal of energy. There are lots and lots of people across the university with a huge amount to say and a huge amount of feeling about AI, and there's no doubt it's changing things. There's a phrase that the stable door is open and the horse is bolted. So AI is out there. It isn't going away. I don't think at this point it's going to completely replace particular people in the industry, but it might replace some tasks. And it might make certain tasks far quicker and easier to do, which will, and I mean quite mundane tasks as well, which will free up creative people to do other things better. So AI is a big challenge for all universities, no matter whether you're doing creative courses or not, because obviously you can, generative AI works really well with kind of text production, but it also works increasingly with film and animation and image generation and those sorts of things. So there's no doubt it's a challenge. And we're looking at it and monitoring it and working out how to work with AI as a tool, how to kind of honestly and accurately declare where we're using AI in our practice or not, as it may be the case. I think the other thing about AI is it might also bring about a resurgent interest in more sort of analog craft type work. There's a huge interest in this in all disciplines anyway. There are things that AI cannot do, and so one of the things we're looking at is what are those things? How do we still create work that has an authentic feel? So yeah, it's a minefield actually, and although I kind of chair this working group, I'm far from the expert on that group. I've got lots of people in that group that are hugely interested in it. And we have a real balance of opinion. And the nice thing about the group that we have is that we have students on that group as well. So it's not just staff. We're not just thinking about it from how does staff work with students who use AI. It's also about assessment. It's about how we assess work that has AI elements in it. And we want the student voice as part of that as well. So because they're the users of this as much as we might be. They're using it every day. So hearing what they want and hearing what their concerns are, what their interests are is really important to us.
Absolutely. I mean, the mindset is, because when you said AI as a tool, I feel like our mindset is always think that AI is against us. Like we're trying to compete with AI, but the mindset is, like you said, you have a research group, it's more like not thinking of them as in a competition, but how can we use AI as an assistance to help us perform something else a lot more efficiency?
Yeah, definitely. It's a collaborator, or it can be. And if you use it in a positive way, it's like collaborating with a sort of mini expert in a typical thing. It might fast track a particular process. The trick with AI is to assess its value, isn't it? It's to look at what it's given you and to work out if it's useful. So it's very easy to generate, large amounts of text super quickly. But the danger is that you don't check it, and you don't check its relevance, you don't check its accuracy. And that's where you get that human interaction with AI that's so vital. It's the same with the creation of other types of work. So whether it's images or films or animation, you've still got to check it. You've still got to work out if it, just as you would if you were working, say, with if I was hiring a photographer to help me, create a piece of graphic design or something, I would direct the photographer to do a particular type of thing. Then the photographer would show me his or her work, and then I would need to assess its value. Is it quite what I was looking for? So you've got that human judgment element that's really, really important. So you've still got to look at it. So if AI produces outputs, you've got to, and they're not quite what you need, then you need to sort of reprompt it or find another way to try and get those results. So it's, if you just sort of in a sort of blind kind of sort of dumb way accept everything AI gives you, then you're not using it properly as a tool. You've got to put the human element in there.
Exactly. So the human element is more on the complication of critical thinking, like you said, the soft skills, right?
Definitely, yeah.
And then also, but besides having the critical thinking, if you don't have the basic knowledge of the technical side of things, you can't be specific with your critical thinking. Because if you don't understand how it works, then how can you criticize it and be critical about it? So I feel like, circling back the AI as a tool, that's how we should use it. Like AI helps you with normal tasks or gives you a starting point. And then you still need to learn the technical stuff and the theory behind, a particular field. It's because to help you, and then using your soft skills, which the program provides you, to do the critical thinking. And then you'll be able to assess that, okay, how much is this AI tool helping me? And how can I tone it with my element of touch, which is like human touches into it as well?
Definitely, yeah. That critical thinking is about questions, isn't it?
Exactly.
What am I trying to achieve? Why am I trying to achieve it? Does this do the thing I need it to do? If not, why not? And how can we get it better? And what do we need to do to modify things? And sometimes it's a case of, an AI process might have run its course, and then you take those outputs, and then you go back to other human creatives, as it were, and you build on top of it, or you just abandon it. I had some students a year ago who tried to use AI for a particular purpose. They had a really kind of odd photo shoot. I won't go into details, but they had a photo shoot they wanted to create, and they just couldn't think of a way of doing it. So they tried to get AI to do it, and they couldn't get it that way either. Not to their satisfaction, which demonstrated to me that they were really questioning the outputs properly, because they very rapidly generated lots and lots of stuff, but it wasn't quite right. So they abandoned it completely and went back to more traditional methods to create the final work that they needed. So I think if you're not asking the critical questions of AI, then you're not recognizing its place as a tool in the total creative process. And I think it's important that we don't get overexcited by it. It's easy to get excited by it because of its immense power and the speed with which it's developing. As a working group, thinking about it, we are trying to remain very agile, as in we're trying to produce guidance rather than rules, because if we write a set of rules for how we use AI and how the students use AI, then we'll have to rip them up every 5 or 6 months. So it's more about remaining flexible and agile as the developments in AI kind of speed along. So we're doing battle with it, as all universities are, and all industries are. It's definitely changing things, but it's a case of I think critical thinking is this thing we talked about earlier. Being a critical, creative person and a critical ideas creative person. It is about questioning and reflecting and all those types of things, and that's essential to all creative work. Always has been, always will be.
Absolutely. I mean, in summary, would you say AI is an exciting thing or like a concerning thing that people should pay attention to then?
It's both, I think.
Oh, okay.
It is exciting, but it is concerning. As we address, we need to address issues of ethics and ownership. AI is certainly earlier generations of various AI software were, plundering all sorts of images and texts without
Or the
kind of
copyright
authors.
consent.
Yeah, exactly. So and later generations are much more
Conscious of
kind
that?
of conscious of that. But AI is built into so many different things, isn't it? It's built into software, it's built into social media, it's built into our
Phones.
our phones and all these sorts of things. So yeah, we're right to be concerned. We're right to think about it in with a great deal of concern and skepticism. But equally, there are opportunities there that we are still learning about, and we need to kind of try and understand them and harness the benefits of what AI can bring, whilst keeping a kind of close watch on things, so we're not getting carried away with it. So it's a very difficult, it's a difficult kind of place to sit, because it's both of those things. It's kind of slightly worrying, and it's also exciting at the same time.
It's still fairly new, I would say. AI has only been like the heat topic for 2 years. Not even 2 years, honestly.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. I mean, I was talking to industry friends, 18 months ago, and it kind of wasn't part of the dialogue. And but 12 months ago, it was very much part of the dialogue.
Exactly.
And now it's the only thing people are talking. It's absolutely a tidal wave at the moment, or an avalanche, or whatever you want to call it. It's all around us, and it's difficult to kind of sit on one side of the fence or the other.
Of course,
Yeah,
because it's still
hard.
very new, and I think no matter if it's university or just anyone in industry as well, we need to acknowledge its existence and its power, but what's our mindset towards it as well? Like you said, it's both concerning but also a bit exciting. It's because it's so new. I think it really shows, to make it a positive thing, it depends on our mindset and then how we go about using AI to turn it into a positive thing. Like if we're always neglecting it, rejecting it, then it'll become a negative thing through our own mindset, and when it becomes fully mature, the AI. Yeah. So it's very interesting as well.
Yeah. I mean, someone said, I'm probably going to kind of quote this wrong, but it's a bit like when calculators were invented, and we worried about the effect that would have on mathematics and people's ability to do maths. But tools are tools, aren't they? And I think the thing about using a calculator is that it frees you up to figure out what the point of the calculation is. What are we trying to achieve by, doing this type of maths, or this division or multiplication, whatever it is? It gives us back the time to be thinking broader about, so tools it's a really bad analogy, and I haven't explained it very well, but creatives have a huge role in our society. We talked earlier about industries and the booming kind of creative sector. We've got creatives have a real stake in our futures. We can, the work that students do at a place like Norwich University Arts can really have proper impact and genuine, meaningful impact in our lives. We've got software tools that are highly sophisticated, and now we're talking about AI and all the rest of it. The trick is to work with these tools in ways that allows us to make meaningful work.
Yep.
And meaningful work is done through the sort of critical approach we were talking about earlier. It's about thinking about, what are we trying to do? Why are we trying to do it? Who are we trying to affect? And reflecting on and interrogating that work. And if AI can make some of that easier or quicker, then that's good, because it frees us up to ask the big, important questions. And I think that's the value of being a creative. And I think creative work will always be about humans thinking, and humans reflecting, and humans having ideas, and humans creating work that creates creates meaning, purpose, and dialogue. Yeah. And at some point, I think we'll forget about this AI debate. It'll just be another tool in the palette of other tools we've got.
Exactly, it is a tool. Like, of course, I didn't take a creative degree, but when you brought up that calculator, I kind of relate because I'm a finance background. But it makes a lot of sense. Like my 3 years of education in finance, it was a lot about calculations, breaking it down, what these NPVs, we're going to get complicated, but what the calculations, we had to do it by hand, but to use our brain, we couldn't use calculator. But then when we worked into the industry, they said, okay, all of these you can just put in the system, put the raw values, and they'll do it for you. And then some of my colleagues, at least my peers, are like, why did I study that for my degree? I could have just put it in the systems. Like, what's the point of learning it? And then the seniors were saying, the whole point is, true, we have these tools, advanced tools, or even AI to help us assist it to shorten your efficiency. But if you don't understand the theory behind it, then if it goes wrong, or touch wood, if it removes the software and we need you to do it and analyze it critically, you won't be able to do it because you don't understand the calculations and the theory behind it. So these tools are there to help you on a real life, setting. But in degrees, you need to learn the theory behind it, which goes back before I said how you can critically criticize, what the AI generates for you, but you still need to know the technical side. So so going back is you need to really treat AI as a tool, the mindset, rather than it's replacing you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, you've put it better than I have, to be honest. And it is a tool, one amongst many.
Yeah.
I mean, this thing I'm holding here, I feel slightly. I always feel slightly kind of exposed without a pen or pencil in my hand. It's the best tool ever. This a piece of paper and your brain is really all. You need to sort of express ideas, articulate ideas, and generate ideas. And later down the line, playing with software or other processes or AI or whatever it happens to be, that comes later, doesn't it? It all starts here and here. And I think that the articulation of thoughts has always been best. I mean, the other thing I've got is a notebook. I never go anywhere without a notebook. Maybe it's a generational thing, but it's those are the best tools you've got: a brain, a pen, and a notebook.
No, that's interesting actually, because when you say that, like when back in the day, you need a book and then you need a pen to write your notes down, and then people transition into using a laptop, and then research shows that I think typing. I don't know the science behind it. I remember read a little bit. Someone told me is writing it by hand into a book is very your brain works very differently to typing it in terms of how you catch up the information and how you express it. They say that writing it down is easier for you to remember it than typing it out, because you need to remember where the keyboard is, your finger movement, and then you focus too much of your time trying to type the words correctly. You actually don't contain that information. But if you write it down, it's so natural. And the software is, I think recently, even talking about tech products, we're going back, not really backwards, but we're kind of integrating notebook and technology together. Like there are new products now where, I forgot what, I'm not going to promote that product, but it's like an online notebook. You write it on, it's like an iPad tablet, then it scans it into your phone. So they still value that. They acknowledge you still need to use your hand to write your notes down, but they integrate the technology part, not turning it into a keyboard, but where there's an app that scans what you write on the paper and put it into a PDF for your phone to see. So it's very interesting as well.
No, it's amazing what the students are using.
Exactly.
They've got digital notebooks, digital pens, digital drawing pads, all sorts of crazy tools. And it's good. I think this is we're in no way kind of anti-progress and anti-advancement. If these things can be harnessed in the right way, and the students prove it day in, day out, they just make amazing work using tools. But also it's about embracing all kind of tools, isn't it? It's about embracing analog processes, analog thinking, as well as digital tools. And the more we can do that, the sort of richer our experiences will be. And it's also about embracing accidents and embracing things, the unintended things that perhaps we might easily miss. It's about thinking about all of these sort of things. But a big part of why you would come to, you said a really interesting point earlier that we didn't pick up on. It was about that idea of whether you would even need to go to university to do to do some of these things. And it's true. You could set, if you buy yourself a laptop and some basic software, you could kind of set yourself up as a social media marketing person without any kind of background. But what university gives you is it gives you time to explore. It gives you time to think. Of course, it gives you exposure to some real expert advice and some expert input. It gives you a peer group to work amongst. And it gives you, or it should give you, certainly this is what we do at Norwich, it gives you that push to think about your work, think about its context, think about its purpose, all those things I was saying earlier. And it's just the best way to build a kind of body of experience, which is often expressed at the end of a course in some sort of portfolio. That will get you into the industry you want. So yes, of course you can. I mean, there's, I mentioned the word logo earlier. You can pay a few dollars to get someone on the internet that you'll never ever meet to do you a logo. But will it be any good? Probably not. An identity for an organization is best done by someone that sits in front of you, understands what you need, understands who you are, thinks about your strategy, thinks about your ambitions as for your organization or whatever it is, and tests a lot of things out with you and works collaboratively with you. And I would say that's the same of all kind of creative disciplines. So the students are embracing all of these things all the time, and university is an opportunity to really think about these things and spend time doing it, and spend time really indulging not just the practice you came to the university to do, but also to work with students across the university. One of the nice things about Norwich is it's relatively small for a creative community. We have about 3,000 students, and every time I say that, I never know how that number lands with people. Do they think that's a big number or a small number?
Yeah.
It's a relatively small number. Most of our courses, and I think we have about 17 or 18 undergraduate degrees, they tend to have anywhere between 20 to maximum of 100, but probably often much less than that of students per year. So relatively intimate groups, and we do a lot of kind of cross-course collaborative work. Several times in a year, we kind of stop everything and we give students an opportunity to go and do something very different. Sort of down, if you're a textile designer, they just down tools and they go and, I don't know, they might go and do some architectural stuff for a few days. So, this is what creative practice does, and this is what a university experience should be giving you. This opportunity to just try different things, work in different ways, think about different ways of making creative work. And you can't really do that from your bedroom on your own. You need that exposure to this type of experience. So, what a great time! I wish I could do it all again. I really do.
I miss my uni days. Don't say that.
Me too.
It is good. Like you said, when you said about that, you could possibly not get a degree and then do it yourself, but the university provides us the resources, the right resources, the most up-to-date network, and also the industry knowledge. It helps you shorten the time to explore, not knowing where to go, right? Technically, unless you're pursuing a particular career that needs professional recognition, it's very kind of extreme to say it, but there are many things that people might feel like, I don't need a degree for it. I can get my experience. But university helps you shorten that time, provides you with the good resources, the relevant resources to shorten that time. It's only 3 to 4 years. Like your education for a bachelor, it's only 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
And then that saves a lot more time, and it's very specific towards a particular area. You don't have to spend so much time just searching, not even know which one's relevant, which one's accurate, or which one's up to date.
That's it. I mean, and those resources come in all shapes and sizes. It's buildings, it's different types of staff, it's academic staff, it's support staff, it's technical staff, it's libraries, it's books, it's online resources, it's software, it's equipment, it's so many different things. It's impossible to kind of sort of replicate that without going there. But it's a bit like, I often say to students, it's a bit like, joining a gym. If you join a gym for whatever reason, you'll get nothing out of it unless you turn up and engage.
Yep.
You've got to, if, for example, if your ambition is to, get fit and lose weight, if you choose to not go, paying a membership isn't going to change anything. So coming to university is about using all of these resources, using the spaces, using the kind of workshops, using the technical team, using the support staff, using the lecturers, attending the industry lectures, all of these things. And if you do that, you'll get huge amounts out of it. But if you don't, then it all slips by. So you've got to be engaged. You've got to get excited about the work, and you've got to practice it and practice it. There's a kind of reason we call ourselves practitioners, and we often use the term creative practice, because that's what we do. We practice all the time, and a lot of kind of creative work. You learn more and more about what you're doing and why you're doing it and how to improve through practice, through doing it again and again and again. And that's why I think university is valuable.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Well, for everyone here, if you have any questions about Norwich University of the Arts or just education in general, feel free to contact me or Martin as well. So I guess that's it for today. Thank you again for your time, Martin.
Absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.